So, hello, Carrie Anne. Welcome to my podcast, One for the Road. How are you today?
I'm all right. Yeah, not too bad, thank you.
Good. Is it sunny where you are, or is it absolutely terrible like it's where I am? Because I've just taken little Rose out for a walk, and it was like November out there.
Well, you're braver than I am. Mine haven't been out. In fact, I've just made the boys take them out, but it's been hammering down for 2 days.
Mad,
So
isn't
yeah,
it?
it's not nice.
No, well, we recently did the big NACOA walk in the Peak District, and we walked
Yeah.
21 miles to raise money for NACOA, and I believe they had 16,000 and something
Yeah,
pound donated. So
smashed it.
thank you everyone for that. And it's such a brilliant charity that you have a lot of involvement with, and I try when I can. So thank you everyone. And we got talking along our walk, didn't we?
Mm,
About your story, and I just thought it'd be really great to get you on. So, do you want
yeah.
to start at the beginning?
God, it's like yeah, those famous words. Start at the beginning. That's how
Yeah.
it starts. God, yeah. So we we met the year before, actually, didn't we, with NACOA? We may as well start with NACOA because that's how obviously we kind of met each other. Um, I met you via NACOA because I'd found them as an adult. So I'd been a child of an alcoholic. I'd been searching for help, found NACOA, and then everything seemed to click into place for me. But I didn't really understand that I was a child of an alcoholic until I was well into adulthood, which we'll go back all the way back
Mm,
to. But actually growing up as a child in that household where it was quite chaotic, um, it didn't really occur to me that there'd been an issue until I was probably going into my adult life. Um, I've had the conversation with a few COAs afterwards, since I've started talking more about my story. And it's almost like you are so used to growing up in an environment of chaos, that it's all you know, so it's your normal. And until people challenge you on that, or you notice that you're slightly different in the way you perform as an adult, that the penny starts to drop and you start to look back. Um, it was my mum who had the addiction. She was just a wonderful, wonderful lady, solid sense of humor, great. When she wasn't drinking, she was lovely. But she'd had a lot of issues in her life growing up. Um, she was forced to give up a child when she was about 19, I think, and never really recovered from that. And then me and my brother were born 2 years later, after she'd met my dad. So there was quite a close amount of time between her having to give up a child because things. I don't know if have you ever watched Davina McCall, Long Lost Families?
yeah.
Yeah. So it was quite, it wasn't unheard of in them days. If you weren't with the father, you had to give up the kid because
Yeah.
didn't want to bring shame on the family. So um, I don't think she ever really recovered from that. And having spoken to my dad after she died, he said she was already, quite unwell when they met, but he loved her, so they ended up together. Um, and then yeah, I suppose like my earliest memories, probably about I was about 4 or 5, and the ones that stick out are the ones where there was something going on in the house, some like fighting, or there would be shouting and things like that. There's a few of those that stick out to me. Um, but it's a really hard thing. It was a really hard thing for me to talk about because it's so complex. Although there were those moments of chaos and there was lots of other things going on in the household, and there's alcohol, early in the day and all those things. Outwardly, we were very well kept, and I think for me to you imagine somebody with addiction to be, somebody perhaps who's not looking after themselves, maybe from a low socio and economic background, all those things. But we had, the perfect house. Me and my brother were always well turned out. And my dad, he was a ex-pro footballer. So, I think people probably knew there was an issue, but didn't really say too much about it. So physically everything was fine, but then emotionally, looking back, we weren't given the emotional support that we needed. And then she slowly got worse. So as I started to sort of try and branch out and leave the home and go traveling and things like that, and I think I'd always tried to escape. When I look back and talk to my friends who were very good to me at the time, their parents used to let me go and stay, bit of respite, I guess. I used to sit with the atlas and route map, and they said to me, you used to do it for hours and then you'd fall asleep. And
Oh,
like, you don't, at the time, I didn't, like, looking back, that's really sad. Do you know what I mean? That I used to do that, but I was obviously looking how I was going to escape and get out. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
So
That's quite upsetting, really, isn't it? And
yeah.
you say like your earliest memory is 4, and
Mm,
obviously this is winding fast forward to your teens
yeah,
and that, right?
yeah,
So in between, because at 4 you don't know any different, do you? Like,
no,
it's you are who you've been brought up with, right? So
yeah,
you get older, you become more vigilant. And I've heard it with COAs more and more when I talk to them that they know the small signs.
mm, yeah,
Lucy Bruce used to say that, she would get in the car of her dad and she would reach under the seat to see if there was a bottle there. And, it could be certain twitches or certain movements or
yeah,
speech, not just slurring, but did you
no.
become more and more hyper vigilant around
Yeah,
your?
yeah, very, very hyper vigilant. I mean, that earliest memory that I was talking about there, I was hiding under a coat, like, because what's going on with your parents, you panic. I mean, it wasn't like that all the time, but that was one of the big memories that I had. But I remember with mum, she was very, very fiery, is the only way I can describe it. And it could just be like, a look, or that something wasn't right. So you get to read the room very quickly. And I
Mm,
think actually that's probably where my incredible sense of humor comes from, because I was always trying to, it's like, be the funny one, keep the peace,
yeah,
those
lighting it
types of
up.
things. Yeah, 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 exactly. And I was always a doer as well, which I think probably stems from um almost going into it like overachieving, and I still am a nightmare for it now. Like, I'm always having to be doing something.
Mm,
I went through my A levels. I did well with my GCSEs. I went to uni the year after she died. There was never much sort of encouragement from home. I knew that they loved me, don't get me wrong, and I knew that they were proud of what I was doing. But I was very, very self-driven, and I think that came from, I was already out of my comfort zone at home, if that makes sense.
yeah, and also you had to manage things on your own.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So you probably become really practical, really resilient.
yeah.
Did you ever have conversations with your dad around it?
I Well, so my dad, he also drank quite
Right.
heavily. Um, we had about 10 good years with my dad when he stopped. So my dad did get sober. It was actually cancer that killed him in the end. But once he'd got sober, we did touch on it. But he has carried so much guilt about the fact that my mum had died, and he couldn't save her, if you like. He used to, quite often say, I tried to get her help. And there's a story that her friend told me where she'd gone to AA and had gone to step through the door, but she couldn't go through because she was scared that they would take me and Alan off her, which is my
Right.
brother. Obviously, she's got that history of having my other brother taken away. Um, so she never got the help that she needed. So I think I protected my dad a lot. I definitely held off exploring the damage that it had done to me until he died.
Mm,
Um, Almost like codependency. He was my next person to look out for. So yeah, once he died, I remember actually going to think, I want to be a counsellor
mm,
because of my background, and going to these counselling sessions to learn to be a counsellor, and coming away every night crying, driving
mm.
home, because it was unearthing all this stuff.
Oh, it's
Um,
heavy, heavy work.
yeah, it was a
I,
lot.
I did 2 years training to be a counsellor, and it dug up some stuff, you know,
doesn't
like
it?
even being in a room and I was in front of a stranger and they said, right, you've got to sit there for 8 minutes and just look at each other,
God.
right? And for some people, they were quite comfortable. For others, it was awful.
Yeah.
You know, the
Yeah.
silence and what come up with the silence was either, you know, good memories of being brought up in a home where they did a lot of reading.
Yeah.
So they were used to the silence, but on other occasions, it was being sent to your room and being told to shut up, which
Yeah.
brought up other feelings, you know.
Yeah, of
But let's
course.
wind it back to your mum a bit. So,
Mm.
you know, your memories of your mum and drinking, like you were getting older. And did you notice a significant change in your mum's behavior, or was she drinking more? Was there a decline? Or,
Yeah, there was definitely a decline. She was she was a very proud lady, you know, and I remember photos looking back from the early years, very proud, very well turned out, you know. And then as I got into my teenage years, that did slip a bit, you know, that she wasn't quite as bothered, perhaps how she looked and things like that. And I think she just, the deeper she got into the addiction, I mean, there were tablets involved with mum as well, because she had terrible panic attacks, you know, where you couldn't leave the house, that type of panic attack. Occasionally we'd try to, you know, go to get on the bus to go somewhere if dad was out at work, and she would have a panic attack and we'd have to go home, that type of stuff. So there was a lot going on there. And it just seemed to slowly chip away at her. You know, you get less and less of the person the more that they drink. You know, you're seeing that they're drunk more of the time. You're coming home from school and you don't know what you're going to find when you come through the door. Those types of things. And, you know, it was very, very stressful. There was a period when I was doing my GCSEs where we were just like at loggerheads, because of course I'd found my bolshiness at that point. And I was like, you know, absolutely not. If you come at me, I'm going to come back at you. You know, there was a period where I went and stayed with my friends so I could do my GCSEs. I almost feel like when I look back that I didn't really know her, because she died when I was 19.
yeah.
So I never got a chance to know her properly, like who she truly
Really
was.
was true,
Yeah,
her
yeah,
authentic self.
yeah, because you're not dealing with the person, how they would even want to be seen. You know, I'm damn sure my mum loathed every part of her that, you know, was shouty and, you know, threw things and drinking and not being able to live life. I mean, she didn't have a life, you know.
See, this is why I do work with NACOA. I remember, you know, Sarah Drage. We did a string of lives 1 year, and she didn't have the answers that she wanted from her dad, because tragically she had to turn his life support machine off. So we did these lives, and I kind of gave her some answers that she needed. Because for you, if you say your mum was a shell of herself, and you know, from my side, I can really understand where she's coming, not where she's coming from was
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
but I mean how she was feeling
yeah,
was disconnected from herself. But
yeah,
she was still trying to manage bringing up a family, run the family home. If she had a job, do the job, be
yeah,
a wife, right? And you say that she was a proud person, always dressed well, the house was nice, whatnot. And it's not like the old narrative of the person under a bridge with a bag. It's, you know, well presented.
yeah,
You know, I often say you don't get a mummy in the playground in a lovely coat and a hair done saying, do you know what, I had a right skinful last night, or a bloke, they brag about it. It's so different, you know.
yeah,
But
it is.
we all carry that shame inside us,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
And so on their side, it's a tragedy, because if she had that loss of a child when she was 19, that obviously caused deep trauma within her,
yeah,
right? And then
yeah,
she's met your dad, and your dad said to you, she's often been quite
yeah,
stressed and, you
yeah.
know, not unwell in a way.
Yeah,
You
she
know, she
wasn't
could
well,
have
yeah.
had really bad mental health,
Yeah, she did.
and she's using alcohol as a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Then you
And
kind of
tablets.
see where she's tablets. So
Yeah,
you kind of see where she's going. But in the meantime, you're there trying to grow up
yeah,
as normal as you can. And
yeah,
then you become the adult.
Yeah. This
You
is
know,
it.
looking
Yeah, with
after
all
your
this
mum,
baggage.
looking after your dad.
Yeah, well, that's what happened. And I actually was thinking about it afterwards when I'd sort of mapped out, the calm periods that I'd had in my life. And there were hardly any, and this sounds awful, but because my dad, I loved the bones of him. He was a fantastic gent. And when we got him sober, he'd stopped drinking. We had a lovely, lovely few years with him. But even then, that was stressful because he was ill. So I didn't really take a breath until I was 39. My whole
Yeah.
life was spent caring for
Caring,
people.
being a carer.
Yeah, and that's massive, because I think when I come out the other side of that and started exploring the effects it had had on me, I had loads to unpick. And it's actually, I've only probably really started living as myself in the past 2 years, if I'm being completely honest,
Mm.
where I know who I am now. Like, what are my boundaries? How do I feel about that? I don't need to put everyone else before myself, because that is what you grow up with in those
Yeah.
environments,
Yeah.
you know?
Putting yourself
So,
last, probably, because
yeah,
you become the carer, the
yeah,
caring role, and then you get used to that, you know.
yeah, the dynamics of it, and then relationships, you're looking at, what's familiar. It's a minefield.
Yeah. You know, so did your mum die? Hope you don't mind me
No,
asking,
I
but
don't
of
mind.
the booze.
Yeah, I remember it very well. I went to work in Cyprus, as we've just discussed. I was always looking for ways to sort of be away. And I'd come back from there and she had gone yellow. So she'd got jaundice. And I remember going to see her. And I looked at her and I was like, "You don't look well." And she was like, "No, I'm okay, I'm okay." And I actually remember there was a bottle of cider by the bed. And you just like, "Give me that, take it away."
Mm.
And then the next thing, phone call, the ambulance had come, she'd gone in. And at first, they said that they might try and get her a new liver, but then they changed their mind, because for whatever reason, my dad always said that he had loads of hope, and then they said they'd changed their mind because she might abuse it. So she never got one. And then we knew, because they were like, "She's not got long." But you put, again, a child in that position, because that's what we were. I mean, my brother's 5 years older than me, but still young, sat in a room where they say, "If she dies, we're not going to resuscitate, but we need your permission."
Oh,
And you're
that's an
having to,
awful
yeah.
responsibility, isn't it?
I mean, you're pulling yourself together, because my dad obviously was in bits, and then you're wiping your face to go straight into the room to visit next door, because you don't want to upset. You're still putting that person first. So, when I look back, I'm like, shit, it was a lot.
You had
Um,
to grow up really young. Like we all know John Taylor,
yeah.
um, amazing guy. And I've had lots of chats with him. But when he was on my podcast, he was saying that he used to come home at 7 years old,
Mm,
find his mum drunk on the sofa, get her up, get her into bed before his dad come home, because he
wow.
would kick off. And that's a 7-year old. So
Yeah.
children of alcoholics, it's a huge,
It is.
massive
Yeah.
responsibility. And I
It is.
don't want people to hear this and feel shame and stuff, because these subjects are always really tricky.
Yeah, they are.
Whenever I do anything for NACOA, it's like there's resistance there, because it's like people put their fingers in their ears because they think, "Oh, I can't stand the thought of it." But
Yeah.
they're really important conversations. And
Yeah.
I remember I went to see Kerry Walker in Brighton. She had this art thing going on, exhibition
Yeah.
underneath the arches in Brighton. She said, I was on the train and she said, "Would you mind doing a talk?" And I was like, "Oh my God, like I'm going to get lynched because I am the alcoholic." And
Yeah.
there's a room full of children of alcoholics, right?
Mm,
And I got up and I said, "Well, I didn't even plan it."
mm,
And the people that come up to me after asking me all sorts of questions were really, really lovely and gentle
yeah.
people, right? And
Yeah.
it really got me in thinking, do you know what? There's a chance that I can maybe help people with this, rather than standing on the outside going, "Oh God, I'm the guilty one."
Mm,
It's more like, do you know what? Let's open the conversation.
yeah.
And I think this is why these conversations, although they're quite difficult to have, are
Yeah.
really important. Hearing
They are.
stories like yourself.
Yeah. And I think it's even more important because like you've just mentioned, there are so many varied experiences. Like my experience will be slightly different to my brother's experience of it. And like John, that you just mentioned, I never had to pick my mum up and take her to bed. But, you know, there's different trauma. And some of my friends have, you know, spoken about somebody that they know that's, you know, they can tell they're drinking too much, but they're still functioning. But it doesn't mean that something in that house isn't affecting you. And it doesn't matter how much you consider it to be traumatic. If it's upsetting you, then it's, you know, it needs to be.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
You know, I've just finished my trauma-informed coaching certificate, right? And I was learning that, you know, you could be in the same car in a car crash and one of them could literally go freak out and the other one would just sit there.
Yeah.
You know, we're all different and our nervous systems react differently.
Yeah.
So we can never compare.
No.
But how old was your mum when she died?
47. Yeah, no age.
Nice,
You think it's old when you're a kid.
I know.
But then I'm like, well, that's, you know, that's the equivalent of me in 4 years' time, you know, leaving my boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was so young.
And how did that hit you when it happened then? Because you had that responsibility in the hospital and that, and then, you know, how did that affect you over the next couple of years after that?
In all honesty, I think I disassociated a bit, and didn't. I mean, I did cry and things like that, but I went very much into doing mode. I went straight to university. You know, we'll block that out, deal with it later. And then from uni, I went to Ibiza to work for a summer, met my husband, who I'm still with, and then never went back to uni, got pregnant. And then I went through some turmoil then, because within 2 years, I'd lost my mum, moved countries, got pregnant, had a very stressful birth in Spain. And then after that, I had a bit of, the doctor said it was like PTSD, postnatal depression. And I don't think I ever dealt with any of it. I really don't, until my dad died, because I just didn't have the space to, you know, and as humans, we are, you know, when we break, we really break. But we are incredibly strong, and we're probably too good at going, bury that.
But our nervous system still hold the trauma.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And it was just waiting for it to come out. And then it did. Yeah. After my dad, it all, you know, it had to come up. There was no choice, because I couldn't move forward without it being dealt with, really. So
how long after your mum died did your dad get ill and die?
Quite a long time. So my dad was 2018. So 28 years.
Yeah.
So it was a long time. He had a long time of, you know, his battles, his drinking, you know, pancreatitis. And that's when they said to him, like, you got to stop, you know. And a lot of people say, I can't understand that when the partner's already passed away.
From boozing.
Yeah. But, you know, but it's so complex, isn't it? Yeah. I don't know what the answers are. I think if we had the answers, nobody would struggle, would they? You know.
No. Did you ever drink?
I have. I mean, I have, and I do. I don't. I would probably go as far to say is I am sober curious. I'm getting there with it. I still like a glass of wine with a meal sometimes. I have patches when I'm doing my training for competition stuff where I won't drink for 7 months, and it doesn't bother me at all. Somebody said something to me the other day which really sort of piqued my interest about my boys, which for whatever reason, I'd never thought about it, whether or not I've just chose not to. They said, when you see them drinking, because one of them's 21, does it worry you? Because there's addiction in the family. Now, because I've brought the boys up in a very sort of safe, calm environment, I just always thought they'd be fine. But then when somebody said that to me, I was like, oh God. And so it's made me kind of think about monitoring, you know, but you can't live like that, can you? What do you do?
I know. And I imagine as well with you growing up like that with your mum and dad, you're over protective, and because you've seen it, you've lived it, you know, and you start looking into genetics as well. And is it passed down through the family? And that's another complex thing. You know, you don't get an alcoholic gene, but you can be vulnerable
Yeah,
to it.
predisposed to it.
So, like for instance, me, I'm definitely vulnerable, but
Mm,
my dad didn't really drink, and his dad didn't really drink, but it's
right.
come from somewhere, right?
Yeah,
And my mum didn't really drink. She liked
yeah.
to drink, but she was one that would wait till 8 o'clock and use a measure. And it's like,
Right.
oh my God, a measure? What is that?
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, I've got lots of genetic signs that I would lean towards
yeah,
alcohol.
yeah.
And there's other parts of me that, you know, gambling and that I wouldn't even care if I never had a bet in my whole life, you know. So
Yeah, I think everybody's got their, or certain people are more,
prone to
like,
things.
yes, because I think with me and my brother, so my other brother, I am in contact with him now. We met in 2009, so that's a nice part of the story. He lives in New
Oh,
York. Yeah, so he's doing very well and he's lovely. He just didn't find us before mum died. That's the only sad part of that. But he knows the whole story, so he can piece together about his life. But me and my brother that grew up together, I would say we are almost addictive in that we can throw ourselves into things like the gym. I mean, look
yeah,
at me with my competitions. That's not normal behavior by most people's standards. It's very, on it. So I
yeah,
think it's just whatever you find at the time, I guess, and some are more socially acceptable than others. Work yourself to death, everyone
yeah,
claps.
yeah, yeah. So when sadly your dad died,
Yes.
and then all of a sudden you were standing there thinking, well, what about me?
Yeah.
How did that feel for you? Was it like a huge light bulb moment? Oh my God, like I've literally lived an entire life of caring and looking after others, and I've pushed all this deep down inside me, and now it's got to come out? Or did you feel like you didn't know where to go? What happened for you?
It was it was a very, very dark time, actually. I remember saying to my brother on the phone, I don't know what the point is. Like, because I loved my dad so much, and the last 8 weeks of his life were incredibly hard because we knew he was dying, and I was there every day, and I watched him sort of grapple with his life, if you like, things he'd not done, things he wished he'd done. So that was really heavy on the lead up anyway, and to watch him sort of waste away, because it was lung cancer that took him in the end. And I went through quite a dark time where I just was like, I'm not sure, after all that, all them years of all that chaos, like, what is the point? I'm not saying that I felt like I wanted to off myself, or but I really sat with, like, what am I here for now this is all finished. And then I got my spring back in my step a little bit, in that I decided that I needed to look at it, because my friend said to me on a dog walk, she went, maybe now's the time, to go, and I said, oh no, I'm not ready yet. And then within a few months I'd gone to counselling, and that's when we started to pick it apart. But at that point it was hard because I'd not experienced anger about it. I still don't really hold much anger, and I know that people say anger's healthy and you should feel it. I always just had this knowing that there was nothing I could have done to stop it. It was never my fault. And that she did the best. It wasn't enough, and by no means was it right, but it wasn't, I never sort of blamed her or thought I could have changed it. So I think that kind of helped me a bit. And then, yeah, the wheels fell off a bit as I dug a bit deeper. I could see patterns in my life where I'd sabotage myself, with these traits that I'd got about people pleasing, and it's almost a bit manipulative, people pleasing. It's not about them, it's about you keeping yourself safe.
100%.
Yeah, so I did a lot of work to try and understand myself and work out who I was again. And once I'd come out the other side of that a bit, everything just seemed to click into place. I remembered that I'm entitled to have a life. It's been 39 years of probably masking and caring, and now I'm entitled to have a life, and this is who I am.
Mm,
Without, and I've got no one to really look after now apart from the kids.
mm.
And I know
Uh,
that I'm smiling when I say that, but
well, I was going to say there, you have got someone to look after, and that's yourself.
Well, yeah.
because
Yeah.
you've looked after everyone. And what I
Yeah.
was going to say about the anger side is that you appear to be a real empath.
Yeah. I
And
know.
it's hard to feel anger sometimes when you're empath, and it can be frustrating for people around you because they're like, I just don't understand it. Like,
Yeah.
why? I'll be right wound up about that. And it's like you always see the best in people, which is a lovely trait.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I do. Yeah. I think I do get that from my dad. He was very much I like to refer to him as like a good soul. Like
Yeah,
he's got a kind way about him.
yeah,
And it's led me into what I do now. Like I retrained to do the fitness side with people in recovery. I work on the severe mental health wards with people
yeah, I
to get
know.
them active because I knew that I wasn't mentally strong enough, probably because I am an empath and I do absorb stuff, to sit there and have somebody in front of me and counsel them.
Yeah,
That would be the end of me. But
yeah.
I can help them in the other way. So, I'm setting up this hub and, it's just nice to be involved in it, really.
Yeah, we'll move on to that later. But
Yeah.
how did you find the NACOA then? What point did you decide actually to search? Was you on Google or something? And there
I
must
was
have been a
Googling.
point.
Yeah, I was Googling. I'm trying to think what it was that triggered that. Because like I say before, I'd never actually sat with it and gone, I'm a child of an alcoholic. Um, I think that I'd noticed some odd behaviours in myself when I was working in the corporate world. I did not like it if the manager wanted to speak to me, even if I'd done nothing wrong. I immediately went into like
Mm,
flight mode. Like maybe it's that treading on eggshells thing again.
mm,
I thought, why am I so bothered by things that just do not faze other people? And I think it was at that point I was like, oh, maybe there's a few of us, like maybe there's something. And I think I did Google NACOA, and I can't remember now whether I found NACOA first or Josh Connolly, one of them, because I can't remember, but it was 2017. And then once I'd found NACOA, I went to Upfest and helped them out that first year. And I stood with Hillary, and I didn't know who she was at the time. And I was on a stall with her all day, and she is the first person that I actually ever opened up to. And I
mm.
come away feeling like this massive weight had been lifted because somebody had actually seen me and gone, yeah,
I hear you.
yeah, massive. Because I'd never told anyone. My husband, even now, I'll say certain things. Like the other day, I was talking about sharing a room abroad with my friend and coughing and panicking about coughing and waking her up. And she was like, why are you so bothered about that? I was like, well, when I was little, if I was to cough a lot, it would make my mum cross. So
Mm.
I used to be like, to be quiet. And there's things like that he says, you never told me that. Well, you don't, do you? It's not something that you.
Well, yeah, I suppose you learn coping skills at the time, don't you? And it's
Mm,
just it becomes part of your life.
yeah, 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 yeah. So you just get on with it. And then Hillary, I was with her again this weekend, just gone at Upfest, and yeah, she just is an incredible lady.
Yeah, she's amazing, Hillary.
Yeah, that just she changed things for me really. And then I thought, oh, I'll volunteer with them and I'll do the speaker training, um, so that we can reach more children because there's so many of us, and even the adults.
Incredible. Like I'm trying to think the first time I got involved with NACOA, and it was probably online because it was
Mm,
probably through lockdown or something. And
yeah.
I might have seen Josh or Sarah. Sarah Drake sent me her TED talk,
Oh
and I
right.
remember sitting up in bed, and it just landed at the right time
Yeah.
because I get a lot of messages, right? And I watched it, and I thought that is really, really powerful. So I shared it, and then we got talking. And not many people know this, but we actually won an award, me and Sarah, for the most unusual friendship. Yeah,
Really.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, we actually won an award for that.
Amazing.
Because it is quite bizarre. I mean, her dad died of alcoholism, and I'm
Yeah.
similar age in that, and we're really close.
Yeah.
So,
But
I've
it's
met all the family, and we
yeah.
go out together and do things, and it's an unusual thing. But anyway,
I think there's a
and
mutual understanding there, though, isn't there? I guess because it's like
there's a mutual
people.
respect, I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah, there is.
like
There is.
like it's I really respect what she's gone through
Mm,
with her dad, but I also see I suppose, how it was for her dad as well.
Yes.
So, and that can be challenging when you're having that conversation, because for the other person who's gone through all that trauma in their life to say,
Mm.
yeah, I get what your dad went through. It's like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
You know, it can be a challenging conversation, but all the best things come from difficult conversations,
They
right?
do, yeah.
So, and then we met at Parliament, didn't we? Because
Yes,
there
we
was
did, yeah.
a wonderful thing at Parliament,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you
But
know,
it's nice to speak to somebody, like you say, on the other side of it, because when people come into my sessions and they're in recovery or they're struggling, I always make sure that they know why I do what I do. So that, you know, there's nothing better, I don't think, than being in a space where you've understood,
mm,
you know, and to be a child of an alcoholic sat in a room with people who are struggling with addiction,
mm,
actually the dynamic works really well,
mm,
because like you say, you've got insight from both sides,
mm.
so I can understand it from both sides, and sometimes they'll come with the children, you know, and I've been there. So it's, yeah, you know, for whatever reason it works, and we should integrate a bit more.
Absolutely, right. And the other thing is as well, it's what do you do with all this knowledge, right? Because Sarah told me that when she had that awful decision of turning the switch, she walked out and she said, I either went left or right. Left is like, I never ever want to see or hear anything to do with alcohol ever again. I'm done. Or I can really help people with this,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And all the people I've met in NACOA is such a family. There's a real family
Mm,
vibe to NACOA.
there is.
And, you know, I went to the event in Manchester as well. And it's just, they're so lovely, like all of them, you know, like, and there's so many as well.
Yeah. I think it
And
was Hillary was saying the other day, it's a club that no one wants to be part of. You know, you wouldn't pick it for yourself, but actually, we're all right. You know, there's a lot of understanding there. There's a
there's
lot
a
of
lot of
depth.
empathy,
Yeah,
support, understanding. They've got a free helpline. You
yeah,
know, it's a fantastic charity. So, okay, so you had some counselling,
yeah.
and let's move on. Like, I want to know,
Mm.
when I first met you, and you're a wee little thing, right? And then I looked at your Instagram, and it's like, okay,
She's jacked.
so
Ugh.
what's going on then?
So the last time I competed would have been in lockdown with my bodybuilding, so bikini competitor. And then I got really badly injured. So I've got a pinched nerve in my neck.
Oh,
And
agony.
yeah, it was a nightmare. So I couldn't train for quite some time. And then I'd got back into my training again last year, and I'd got my coach back. And I was supposed to actually be competing around now. But because I'd taken on the extra work at the hospital to work on the wards with the physios, and then trying to sort this hub out and all these other things, it's had to take a little bit of a back seat again. But the plan is that I am going to compete again. Hopefully be May next year. And then I'm going to put it to bed,
Are
because
you?
yeah, I am, because one, I'm not getting any younger and it's very invasive. And this is I think, to the point of, I actually started bodybuilding after dad died. And when I look back, you know, I don't lie to myself. I'm pretty sure I used it as a tactic to, because I literally couldn't sit still. You know, when your nervous system is so shot to bits
Yeah.
from the stress, there were times when I would try to sit down and be still, and I could literally feel the anxiety and like the energy just buzzing all through me. I didn't know what to do with myself. So I tried colouring books, reading, you name it, nothing worked. I started walking for miles. The dogs were livid. Like, can we go home, please? Nothing did it. And I thought, I need something to get stuck into. And so I found, you know, this obsessive dieting, gym, got stuck into it, made myself quite ill before I found a good coach.
Why
Uh,
was that? What, overtraining in the wrong way?
yeah, just excessive dieting. I mean, even for a small person like me, they had me on, I think I was running about an hour and 20 minutes every day. I must have been on like 800 calories, something stupid like that. I mean, don't get me wrong, people are like, oh, you look great. Yes, I'm also dying inside. You know, it's just, it was very unsafe. And I started to have like spin out and things like that. So I knew that I wasn't doing my body any favors. So I went and did it properly. But that is an addictive thing, you know. It's, you know, you're very addicted to the seeing your body change and all those types of things. But it's not good for you. I always say it's an extreme sport, you know, but Instagram very much glorifies it now. There's a lot of people doing it, and I look at these young girls doing it, and I'm like, oh God, you know, I hope they don't get stuck in the loop, because you will damage yourself if you keep it up. So yeah, by the end of May next year, I should have done my last competition. But it depends. It depends how the hub goes, because if that, you know, takes all my time, which it is doing at the moment, you've got to be all in. I'll be doing 15,000 steps a day, 40 minutes cardio, weight training, prepping my food. It's a full-time job.
Yeah.
Can't be doing that while you're doing everything else.
So tell me a bit about your day job first before we go into the hub.
My many day jobs, Steve.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on. I freelance a lot. So I work with, have you ever heard of Fallen Angels Dance Theatre? They work with people in recovery. Incredible. Right. So have a look at them. Sometimes I facilitate for them every now and again. If they need help, I go in and take their movement session. I work on the mental health wards at Council of Chester with the physio team. I do my own personal training sessions. Don't sit down, basically. And I work with kids on a Tuesday evening. We do fitness, and with a heavy emphasis on mental health. So we have a mental health practitioner come in and sit with us. But we get those kids doing all types of things that they would not get access to at home, probably. You know, like we take them to do parkour, spray painting, you know, we give them all these different things to do. So my work is really varied, with the emphasis on working with people who really need it, including the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
tough job though, right? We were talking, weren't we, about the incredible work.
Yeah.
But it can absolutely drain you. And you said sometimes you're sitting in the car park for an hour, like literally trying to decompress. And
you
know, I identify to that, because some days I've got 4 or 5 appointments, and I might be working in the evening as well. And you like put your head on the pillow and you're almost like, what the hell was that?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And it almost becomes, I think when you're working with people day in, day out, you almost become a little bit desensitized to the stuff you're hearing. So you're just like, yeah. But actually, when you come out of that environment where you've absorbed all that and try and go back into your normal house where your kids are or whatever, that's when you know that you're absolutely shot to bits. Because that only happens to me on the drive home. And then I'm like, right, I need to pull over, come down a bit.
Yeah.
Then I can go and function in my own. But that's why a lot of people who do these jobs burn out.
Yeah.
You know, because it's knowing the difference, isn't it, between compassion fatigue and knowing where to draw the line. Like I can have like professional compassion for you, but I can't allow it to be the same as I would have for my kids or somebody. And it still takes me a long time to get to grips with that.
Yeah, I was saying with me, I've kind of developed a filter that I've put in place, that you only take so much in. Otherwise, you literally would absorb every single word that people say to you, and then the next person, then I'll record a podcast, and then hold a group in the evening, and you know, and then you burn out. It's a natural thing. So, what's the hub then?
So, I'm hoping that it's going to be a full holistic approach. So we'll have it's based around fitness and movement, because I'm a massive advocate for, you know, if people can move, they should. Even though I work with some people that it's hard for them to even brush their teeth. Do you know what I mean? So I get both sides of it. You know, it's not a one thing fixes everything. But the hub is going to be aimed at people in recovery, people with severe mental health in the community. They can come and do yoga, Reiki, boxing, you name it, we've got it going on. Journaling. I want to offer counselling sessions at a very reduced rate, hopefully free sometimes, where they can just walk in off the street, because NHS lists are massive. So I've built this little network over the past couple of years of social prescribing teams and people who are going to come in and facilitate. And I was very lucky, you know, like when you feel like the universe is on your side.
Yeah.
Because I'd wanted to do it for ages, and I was thinking, I just don't know how to do it. Like, how am I going to put my foot forward? And this local philanthropist heard about what I was doing and said, do me the business plan and I'll look at it. So I was like, okay, I've never written a business plan, but fine. So did that. And he said, yeah, I'll fund the cost of the building for you for 2.5 years.
Wow,
So
that's amazing.
just incredible. And like the more people I talk to about what's coming, you know, there's a real buzz around it because it's something slightly different. It's purpose built, you know, and it's somewhere that people have a place that's really theirs. Do you know what I mean? Because there's a lot of people die because they're hiding, aren't they? They're literally hiding from the shame of it. So if they've got somewhere where they can have that community, a bit like NACOA, a bit like what you offer, and it's a place that is specifically for that, I think there's massive power in that. So
And by the sounds of it, there's it suits a lot of different people, right? Because some people meditation doesn't work, yoga doesn't work. You know, I was having a conversation the other day about it, and actually, it can have the opposite effect when you go inside yourself.
yeah,
You know, if you're meditating, that could bring up all sorts of stuff. So, you know, yoga, the same.
yeah. It's
So
like cracking you open.
Cracking you open. So, but then something like boxing might just get rid of the frustration. You know, or journaling might bring out a creative side where you can emotionally dump your stuff on a bit of paper, you know. So it sounds a wonderful, wonderful place. And bloody hell, out of anyone I know, it's like I think you deserve a break. Like you've had a lifetime of it, haven't you? And you know, we could probably really get into it a lot more if we had more time. But I think you're amazing and brave, and you know, it's incredible. Before we go, what would you say to anyone out there now listening to this and they've got emotions going on now where they think, do you know what? I feel kind of upset about this conversation, or it's brought up feelings for me that I've buried in the past, or, you know, I've never really known how to talk about it. What would you say to them?
I would say that if you are feeling like that and you know there's something, that you actually owe it to yourself to go and look into it. And it doesn't have to be, you know, it might be that you see 3 counselors and none of them are right for you, because, you know, everyone's got different skills, but you have to deal with it. Because if you don't, I see a lot of people on the wards when they get into the 80s, 70s and 80s that haven't dealt with stuff. The wheels come off eventually. They just always do, or it'll manifest in another way, and you're not actually living. If you don't deal with it and you can feel it picking away at you, you're not living. So you owe it to yourself. If you've grown up and had those sorts of environments, you've done enough. Like, you need to put yourself first for a change. And it is scary. No one wants to pick the scab. It's actually terrifying because you've got to go down before you come back up. But it is so bloody worth it.
Oh, 100%. Like, people live in a dysregulated nervous system for decades because they don't know what to do with it, you know, and just talking about it, getting those feelings out, as you say, movement, you know, the 5 senses, touch, smell, hearing, all these different things, polyvagal, toning.
There's so much now that we didn't have years ago, you know. So
tapping, EFT. All these things to connect yourself with your nervous system, to regulate it. So on a daily basis, you're living in flow. You know, and it doesn't make it go away, but what it does do, it helps you to live your life freely rather than having this huge block. So it's really important for mental health, physical health. You know, immune disease comes from a dysregulated nervous system. You know?
And your relationships, everything, you know, your relationships will change as soon as you start, you know, working out what it is that's bothering you. You know, all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, the amount of beautiful people that have come into my life over the past year, you know, and sometimes I'm like, this is incredible. But the more you become authentically you, it does work like that. Like, literally the best people. Just like we've got on like a house on fire, and there's a lot of understanding there. So that, you know, it is scary, but do it. Go and find what works. Like, say, moving is incredibly powerful.
And, you know, you say about amazing people coming into your life, and there's the philanthropist that's, you know, he's giving you a helping hand with that.
Yeah, you know, he's like God sent. I'm like, my God, what, you know,
But
that's
you
why
know,
I'm on the right path.
we attract the right people when we're in flow, like,
Yeah,
don't we? And
yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
like me, since I've stopped drinking 5 years and a bit, it's like, God, I've met some incredible people that I didn't even know existed. Yeah, when I was drinking, my main thing was I'm going to lose all my mates. I
Right.
don't really see any of them anymore because
Yeah,
they're
not on the
all
same
still
level of them.
drinking, and I don't align with them. So for me to get up and say, right, let's meet in the Peak District on a Sunday and go for a long walk. In the old days, I'd been, what? That means I'd have to be careful Saturday night, and I never would be.
Yeah.
But it would be, well, the pub opens at 12. How long's the walk? Oh, well, it'd be all day. Nah, sorry, I ain't interested. It makes your life so bloody small. And when I drove up there on that Sunday morning, and we all got together, didn't we? And you gave me your ice cream, in fact, thank you.
I've had so much mither about that. On the video, you can see Kate going,
I know, you promised me that. I mean, the ice cream was bigger than you.
I know.
And you said to me, oh, do you want me ice cream? I went, yep.
Well, I'll have that.
Yeah.
It was good.
Of course, you know, NACOA have got a helpline as well. So it's important for people that have been affected or listen to this and they need a bit of support, that they can ring the NACOA helpline as well. And there's amazing people there, take calls and whatever. So,
get
well,
involved.
Yeah. So listen, thank you so much for joining me today. And I wish you all the very best with the hub.
Thank you.
I'll put all your details on the show notes and that. So if people want to give you a follow in that and see your journey with what you're doing. And it's amazing all the work you do. Just don't burn out, because
I know, we'll do another podcast about that. You've gone and done it, haven't you?
Do you remember when I spoke to you in May 2024? Well, I burnt out about 3 weeks later.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
No, I'm being careful.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on, Dave.
That's a pleasure, honestly. You've been amazing. And I'll see you soon, no doubt.
Yeah. Take care.
Bye.